What is the mood in Cabinet like, do we think? Let's talk to Chief Political Commentator Lucy Fisher. Good morning, Lucy.
Hi, Stig.
I don't know whether that James Heapy line, which may have even been a throwaway line in his own mind, may have snuck its way into Cabinet this morning.
Well, I'm sure it's been widely picked up and sharpened the minds of those arriving. I thought fascinating just to watch people arriving. Brandon Lewis, the Justice Secretary, deciding to be driven right up to the door of number 10 in his ministerial Range Rover to avoid that long walk and being pelted with questions by reporters. Michael Ellis, the Attorney General, a little bit more confident. He chose to arrive on foot and give a cheery good morning to the policeman. So a balance of sort of impressions created as they walked into that room today, but I have a feeling it might be quite a tense atmosphere.
Well, also, how can I've been in difficult meetings before. We all have, I suspect, but the huge elephant in the room will be this sense, and I don't know whether she would even mention this, the Prime Minister, that there's a strong feeling that I need to leave the job. The polls are so badly against me. The newspapers have turned on me. The Daily Mail is very, 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 very lukewarm on Liz Truss, which, considering where it was even a week ago, is quite the move. Does that get talked about, do you think? Or do they actually sort of pretend it's not there, like the war in Jane Austen novels? It's just something that's too big that you can't actually wrestle with it directly.
I'm sure it's not addressed directly. I think if those sort of things erupt into the open in a forum like that and the resulting leaks, I mean, that really is end of days territory for the Truss premiership. But let's see. I mean, all bets are off at the moment. I also think on the flip side, the intolerable pressure on her, knowing that many of, or at least several of her most senior colleagues around that table are now openly said to be plotting against her, must be very extreme. I'm not sure how she can quite, find the strength within her to sort of stagger on, knowing that, for example, the Times today revealing that a senior ally of Penny Mordaunt has reached out to Rishi Sunak about them having a joint ticket. There's also lots of chatter in Westminster of MPs accusing other cabinet ministers of canvassing on behalf of each other, all denied when I've sort of asked the question about things I've heard. But clearly the plotting is really bubbling up now. And I think it must be a very difficult position for Liz Truss to be in. And that's almost the worst thing, isn't it? You don't want to have to feel sorry for your leaders.
That's a very good point. But also, what about the business of government? Because if you remember back, in the ancient history of a month ago, there was the economic plan, and then there was the supply side reforms going to be, change planning, change business regulations, all of that stuff. Because the whole vision has now been so utterly, utterly rubbished and repudiated, does that side of the ball not get a look in, or are they still planning that in cabinet, do you think?
Well, I'm fascinated to hear the official readout after the meeting this morning and to speak to my sources within cabinet to see what can be resurrected of that plan. But it seems to me very noticeable that in the past 24 hours, there hasn't been mention of, big planning reform, major changes to immigration, all those really sticky areas that could potentially drive growth, but would prove very controversial trying to bring her cabinet and wider party with her. Yesterday, when Jeremy Hunt referred to the growth agenda, he said he talked about investment zones. He talked about speeding up road projects. We're talking about really small beer moves here. And I think that is another question you're absolutely right to ask. What is the programme of government that Liz Truss can try and get through now that her political authority is just so shot?
Well, Lucy, we'll find out when you start to get little bits and leaks out of that cabinet meeting today. Lucy Fisher, our chief political commentator, and she'll be back on Times Radio when she hears the whispers.